Sleep detectives, we're back.
In the house, yes.
We're in the
It's that time of
house.
week again.
Doing one of our most favourite things, answering the sleep questions that come through into our DMs and our socials, and having a good old crack at answering it when sometimes there's not a lot of information. So should we just dive in?
Let's do it. Let's go for it.
Fast game's a good game. Okay. Lauren DM'd us and said, hi, love your potty. Thanks, Lauren.
Oh, thanks,
My
Lozzie.
6-month-old... My 6-month-old often does a 40-minute nap for first and second naps, despite many attempts at resettling, then wants to do a long nap for the third one, as in will wake up after 40 minutes, then be hysterical and fall back asleep pretty easily with some assistance. I often let him do a second sleep cycle to catch up on the lost sleep from earlier. Is there a fix for this? Thank you in advance.
Oh, this is a good question. I think I would
love this. We haven't answered. We haven't had this question on the pod yet.
There's a couple of reasons why I try and avoid a really long third nap, and that's one, because it's hard to manage. Like if you've got, I don't know if this family has other children in the mix, but for those families who have older siblings and so forth, that time of the afternoon is really hard. You've got pickups and activities and all the things.
Dinner and bath time, and everyone's a little bit dysregulated and overstimulated. You're racing home from work at some point.
That's right. But the biggest factor for me is we're trying to create smooth, seamless nights. And when we have a really long, chunky third nap, quite often that reduces sleep pressure. We're trying to optimize sleep pressure to help sleep drive, keep ticking the sleep cycles over in that first half of the night, which is deemed to be deep sleep phase. So if we have a super long third nap, quite often that sleep pressure is reduced and it can feel quite clunky for the first half of the night. So of course, you take that with a grain of salt. There's lots of little ones, that totally are fine. We're not talking about those little ones. It's typically the babies who are coming to us with a third nap that's super long. We would shift that for sure. In terms of how you might try to lengthen out the second one, because Mum is talking about how she is trying all the things to get that one optimized. It's at this age, it's just about dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And I would look back at my timings. So I would look at the timings to make sure that the wake windows between nap 1 and nap 2 are correct. I would be looking at feeds. So sometimes it just boils down to the simplest things. And tanking up is really, really important to have more successful naps through the afternoon. So, through the day, really. So if you've turned 6 months, then your feed times in our scheduling would be 7 a.m. both boobs, 11 a.m. both boobs, and then we would go in with solids at 11:30 to really top up the tank. And quite often you start seeing a bit of a turnaround if your little one can settle and link their sleep cycles, giving that opportunity to nap 2 to be able to do that. It can sometimes be easier when you've really topped up and tanked up at 11:30.
I also think, just to go back to the really long third nap, I think sometimes it can become habit as well, that this is just how the day pans out.
And it works for us this way, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then I would be the same of like, gosh, I battled all day. At least I can get some sleep in the tank. Like I'll take it. But it's really, and then so baby just learns like, this is the one where I resettle, and we can just shift that. But the other reason why I prefer to have it shorter in the afternoon is because it can also not only, as you said, sort of interrupt the smoothness overnight, but it can also push bedtime late because they've had this full-blown restorative nap. And personally, I like to keep bedtime at a slightly more reasonable time, and it can easily just start to feel like it gets later and later as if that trend continues and baby gets older and older and older. I also think time down on the mat, really important.
Yep.
We need our babies to be physically tired enough to not only fall asleep, but to stay asleep. They need to they need to work out. They need to burn some energy. The other thing is, what's the sleep environment looking like? The middle of the day nap is literally middle of the day. So if where you're living, is it too bright in the room, which is making it harder for that second sleep cycle to lock in, even fully assisted. And so I'd be having a look at the environment for sure there. But also I'd then want to, once we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's, as you've said, how is self-settling looking like? Because often it can feel like the goal is linking the sleep cycle. But for me, that's secondary to can your baby self-settle in the first place, because it can be it's a very tricky ask for them to self-settle back off to sleep when they've never had to do it when they were genuinely tired at the beginning of a nap. So I would want to just find out where is that skill set sitting. No problem if it's inconsistent or non-existent or you're not sure what self-settling means even. It's the ability to fall asleep independently without being rocked, held, patted, fed, all of those things to sleep. And then we can look at nap training to lengthen out that second half. But that would be part of the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, as well as all of the other foundational elements. How does baby fall asleep, and can they do it on their own?
Even if they can't, so if mum's sort of wanting to try and get the scheduling on track, like self-settling is like the ultimate, like it's great. But even if you can assist to sleep initially and then resettle, like with assistance, like even that in itself can sometimes be a really good starting point, because at least within your baby's internal clock, they're wiring into having a longer linked nap in the middle of the day.
Just like she's able to do for nap 3.
That shifting that expectation.
Yeah, which by doing the things like the appropriate the scheduled timings, the feeds, the solids, the environment, the tummy time, that can then make a baby far more receptive to your resettling and fully assisted attempts for that second sleep cycle as well. It's sometimes the smallest structural changes that make a baby far more adaptable to that. And then, as we always talk about, then the self-settling comes in on top of that. I highlight it just because she's trying so hard to resettle that sometimes babies don't like all that fanfare.
Well, that's true. I think it also too, like if it's become habitualized, like you were referring to earlier, where nap 3 just is always the longer one, sometimes we just, if nap 2 hasn't quite been the greatest, they just move on to the next part of the day. So by getting baby up after the 40 minutes, it's highlighted 40 minutes is totally fine. So, which is going back to that whole resettle to try, well, I know that they've been trying to resettle, but when you've dotted all your I's, crossed all your T's, like we've said, like they've been to the gym, they've done their HIIT class. It can definitely add to switching it all around. Sometimes it's persistence.
But here's a sideways step. So instead of doing the hands-on resettling and in the cot or aiming for the elusive transfer after, can baby fall asleep in the pram and you either go for a walk for the whole time or, and this doesn't have to be long-term, this is just whilst we're rejigging everything to line it up a little bit more in line with what they're wanting, or even just rocking the pram inside and they're liking that motion. Go for a drive even. If again, it's only for a couple of days, but if I can get a great long nap in, some easily can, that's a great way to just have a bit of a circuit breaker from when you're feeling a bit stuck in this pattern of how the naps are playing out. So a few sideways steps to retrain the body clock can do the world of good, that then when you go to put them down and try a different resettling technique at the end of a sleep cycle, they're already anticipating a longer nap because they've been taking it for the last few days in the car. So that's a helpful sideways step too. Okay, Sam has asked, hey, I've just listened to your pod on the feed, play, sleep routine, and I am definitely in this routine of feeding too too often because of catnapping. I'm now looking into anchoring feeds. I just wonder, how do I start to stretch out the times? I have a 5-month-old and I'm currently feeding every 2 to 3 hours and 2.5 hours overnight. He has frequent wakes overnight and it's getting too much. We are also struggling with him being put back in the cot after his night feeds. It has been taking an hour to get him to stay asleep, or we give up and co-sleep. I think trying to fix his feeding schedule will be a start, and then the cot part I just have to work on. Thank you for any info you can provide. I love this. She's taken the perfect messaging out of that feed, play, sleep episode, which was, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with that, but you can end up feeling trapped with small, frequent feeds. And then the flow-on effect of that is that a baby can sometimes genuinely need to take small, frequent feeds overnight. Now, there can be lots of reasons why feeding back to sleep is the crutch, so to speak, in play overnight. At 5 months old, we'd be looking at moving to 4 hourly feeds during the day. So 7, 11, 3, and then 30 minutes before bed, which is roughly around 6:30, depending on how the naps have gone. And this would apply, assuming his baby is healthy, weeing, pooing, growing, thriving, milestones, all of that. Breast or bottle, it doesn't matter, so long as it's a complete feed. So we'd be looking for both breasts or a 180 to 240 ml bottle. And I guess to answer the first part, which is how do you stretch from 2 to 3 hourly to go to those 4 hours, you just stretch. And that can sometimes be the more intimidating side of reading one of our sleep plans or reading our schedules, is because it feels like a big jump. Forget the sleep training technique, which often gets a lot of airtime and maybe some nerves. I think truly space feeding can feel scary, for sure.
I agree. It feels like the biggest thing to overcome, because for a lot of families, it's it's just an easy fix for a little one that's a little bit under, is over it. You know what I mean? Like, they're over the scenario. They're just having a bit of a whinge, a bit of a sook. They're looking tired. They feel frustrated. They're sounding out. We just pop them on. We give them a bit of relief. It's a bit of relief for us. It's just constant topping up. And because they are topping up, they do sort of signal that they are genuinely looking for a little bit more. So I typically do my consultations with my families in the afternoon, which kind of gives us a little bit of if parents are ready to start working on sleep that night, it kind of works quite well, because I'll say, why don't we start at 3 o'clock? If they've already had a little top-up feed at maybe 2, I'll say at 3 o'clock, we're going to do another top-up feed. We're going to tank them up to the best of our ability. And then we're going to roll through to 6:30, because technically, if you do the little mathematical calculation,
3.5 hours, not 4. We give you a tea.
Yeah, we give you a little half-hour buffer. And that works well. It's like, it can be a hard stretch, but usually there's a lot involved. There's a nap that's involved. We're on the bedtime routine. There's things to do, keeps us busy. We're looking at the scheduling quite carefully.
Some babies might have solids in the mix. Yeah.
Exactly. And then so we get to say 6:30, and then all of a sudden those boobs have replenished. You're feeling like, holy dooly, like there's a lot in there. We do a great big feed before bed. We try and keep them fully awake until, it's time for bedtime. We pop them down. They do their sleep work. And from there, the homework of the night is to get to your 4 hourly stretch. Now, that's going to be so much easier, because off the back of having a 3.5 hour gap, your baby is going to feel so satiated that there's a really high chance that they're going to breeze through this next 4 hours. Breeze is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but we see it all the time where parents are like, holy moly, like that was
they did it
quick.
Yeah.
They did it. That was unexpected. I totally thought this was going to take so much longer to establish, but it sometimes can be within the first 12 to 36 hours. They are fully established on a 4 hour feed, because you've been able to have a really uncomfortable moment once, tanked them up, and they've been able to do that stretch so much more easily than you anticipated.
And what that does is you're already starting the next day primed for 4 hourly feeds. So if you've held steady with your 4 hourly overnight, great. 7 a.m. comes around, best feed of their life. and then already they're fuller and you are confident in your stretch to 11 a.m. That doesn't mean that, and again, like you and I say this all the time, we know that there is more to feeding, breast or bottle, there is more to feeding than just nutrition. You know, I bumped my head, I got bored, I'd like a cuddle, all of these things. We're not discrediting that at all. But in the context of sleep work and trying to organically improve sleep even before we get to a technique, we absolutely find, and we hear it time and time again, like every single week from families that we work with, that this one change alone already has such a significant improvement.
Yeah.
And in their confidence, and also in just feeling less touched out often as well. You know, I've got some freedom. And so by doing that, you have already primed your first wake window. You have then set 11 a.m. up to be a great feed. You will have had a nap in at that time. Hopefully that was even easier. And you just keep moving through the motions and it gets easier and easier. I think sometimes it can take some babies the matter of one stretched feed and they're on it. That's fine. All done. Yeah. There is, as you mentioned before, an uncomfortable moment somewhere along the line for majority of babies in the sense that they're not necessarily hungry. If they're fed every 2 hours overnight, it's not genuine hunger because we've moved from 3 to 3.5 hours. It's going to be something happens around this time and I'm feeling all these other feelings, and a feed would soothe this feeling right now rather than I'm absolutely starving. And I think that's the other reason why this element of sleep work is intimidating, is because you as the listeners, but also very much Beck and I, we never want to do anything through genuine hunger.
Absolutely not.
And that's why we have a plan to move to space feed. That's why we're encouraging the tanking up and topping up so that you can be confident that we're not doing that. Sometimes I find that if you haven't been able to do that first stretch going into the night, as Beck has said, sometimes the next best place to start is the 7 to 11 a.m. one. So you might have thought, okay, I did the best I could get through the night. I ended up doing a feed at 5 and come 7 a.m. baby's not very hungry. Oops, that happens. No drama. It's great data to tell you about how the calories are working overnight. And then you'll need to stretch the friendship until 11 a.m. And that means that when baby is annoyed, grizzly, clawing at your top, pointed to the bottle of formula, you're going to go out and check the letterbox. You will have had a nap in that time too. And fully assisted. We don't mind how you get it done. And you're just going to distract. They're just not aware that come 11, best feed. And that's sometimes that first stretch that then makes all the difference.
Yeah. It's just knowing that it's easier to do that and faster than to gradually start moving incrementally to 3 hours, 3.5, 3 3/4. Yep. We just rip the Band-Aid off because you're going to see the benefits so quickly of what you're doing. And that's ultimately why you're doing it. Like you want to see improvements, and that's where spaced feeding can provide you with typically better sleep quickly. Like Absolutely. It can really improve
because you could
nights.
go from the 2-hourly wakings already to 4-hourly. And that's a huge win for us.
That is huge. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of you'll feel relief, you'll trust the process, you'll trust the plan, and then you'll be able to keep the momentum going and keep the progress moving forward and towards your ultimate sleep goal. And that's what we hope for families. Excellent. I'm actually really excited, and that family's absolutely on the right track of where to start.
I really enjoyed doing that episode. Because I think for us, it really highlights that, like the sleep training side. It's like sleep training is great, like sleep, the techniques and so forth. But it's what goes on behind the scenes to get to the point of sleep training that really makes the biggest difference in terms of like dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, building the confidence up to do the sleep training that ultimately will bring it home. But there's so much work to it, and being able to identify when there's potentially something that could easily just be switched around. Like once you identify that she's actually sleep detectived her own problem. Like, so
we're hiring.
Being able to identify, I think identifying your own problems is exactly where this podcast comes into play.
Yeah.
Highlighting what you can switch up.
And it's doing the audit, right? It's doing your own audit. And then we're happy to cross-check and say, you got it. That sounds really great and appropriate with the information that we have. I also think that it's a great place to start for families where they feel like they've already tried sleep training, the actual training part, and can't figure out why it's feeling so hard. Whilst we know that there are definitely babies that could probably stay on 2-hourly feeds and you sleep train at bedtime and they smash out 12 hours. Like you hear those sort of stories, but we work with trickier babies that require a little bit more structure and nuance, but not only is it literally for the baby and the success of sleep and to improve it readily and easily, but it's for you as the parent to feel rock solid when making change that can feel hard. And when you feel empowered and understand why, then you're able to see it through and keep it moving forward. And that's ultimately what we want, is for parents to know what to do, how, and why.
And remember that we're not dropping feeds, we're consolidating feeds.
Yes.
That's the biggest, it's the biggest, most empowering thing for families who are breastfeeding and bottle feeding as well.
Yeah.
Is that they're feeling like we're going to say you need to drop some feeds, but really we're just shifting them. We're shifting them to a bigger.
And that's what we hear as well. Like, it's one thing for us to say it, but we hear from families like, oh my gosh, I'd never felt a feed that good. And that's for breastfeeding parents. You know, oh gosh, I never felt my boobs so hard, or I was so ready for a feed, or finally he took the second side. I've been trying for 8 months and finally he took the second side. So the system works. Okay, Brendy has said, baby boy is 10 months this week. I've noticed he's taking longer to settle for naps. Currently on 2 naps, wakes at 6:30. Nap 1 is 9:15 till 9:45. Nap 2 is 12:45 till 2:45, and bed is at 7. He has also been waking and rousing earlier, around 5:30. He does go back to sleep normally, but he will cry and rouse for a while before falling back asleep. If he needs longer wake windows, how do I navigate without bedtime ending up being later? Hope this makes sense. There are so many great clues in this question.
How old is the baby again?
10 months.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Right.
So kind of twofold, a little bit of restlessness / early rising brewing, and naps are getting trickier. Straight away, we're going to move away from 9:15 as your starting point, and we're going to do 10 months this week, either 9:30 or 9:45 as your anchor. What that has a twofold result, if you will. One is it will assist in an easier settle because we've provided more awake time, lots of time down on the mat, lots of time pulling up, doing all the beautiful 10-month-old things, and building up some sleep pressure. But if you've got some restlessness in the early hours of the morning, an early nap, which 9:15 for us would be on the early side, can accidentally reinforce that early rise because they almost are just like slightly on a different time zone. They don't have to sleep more restoratively in those fragile hours because they get to compensate with an early nap. So they're just sort of off kilter from what we're striving for. Then, sorry, I'm rereading the numbers again. Considering actually that this baby is 10 months, is a fresh 10 months, let's do a 9:30 till 10:15 nap 1. Beck, at the moment, she's got nap 2 happening at 12:45 till 2:45. Lovely long 2-hour nap, and then a 7 p.m. bed. How are you going to structure nap 2 off my 9:30 till 10:15 nap 1?
So at this age, we're going to use a 3-hour wake window. And so we're going to do lunch at 12 o'clock and we're going to do milk 30 minutes before the nap. So around 12:45, there'll be a milk feed and then into the cot for 1:15. So exactly 3 hours between nap 1 and nap 2. And then we're going to aim for a 2-hour nap. So 3:15 up. And then we also, at 10 months, we can move to a 4-hour wake window. So if baby's waking up at 3:15, then we would use 7:15 as our bedtime.
Yeah. And again, by moving to that 1:15 nap, you're going to have an easier time. We've built some sleep pressure there. And this baby was doing a 4-hour 15 wake window before bed. So we're actually just going to trim it a little bit to the 4 hours at a fresh 10 months, because that will also assist, just in case, ironically, a little bit of overtiredness, which I don't think is a huge culprit at play here, but just while we're finessing things, can cause early rising.
Early rise.
So it's a multifaceted answer, as per usual, but there are clearly some great skills in play. This is just a matter of rejigging.
Just a couple of tweaks.
Here and there. But otherwise, you are home and hosed. Brendy? Okay, let's have a look. My almost 12-month-old will not sleep past 5:30 a.m. no matter what I do. He has a 30-minute capped nap at 9:30 and a 1.5 to 2 hour nap at 1:30. Bedtime 7 p.m. and sleeps through 50% of the time. Otherwise, he just wakes once. I've tried adjusting naps, etc., and it all turns to a beep shit show. If he wakes before 6 a.m., I still treat it as night. 6 a.m. wake up is fine. Any earlier, and I'm like, why? Please help, love heart, love heart. I can feel this because early rising is a slog and it can feel incessant. Like you are doing all of those things and that alarm clock in the cot goes off constantly. So if you don't mind, Beck, I just want to jump in and say I've tried adjusting naps. We would encourage you to adjust naps regardless of whether or not it turns to custard. One of the ways that we can set the stage for early rising to resolve is by using your baby's internal body clock to support a later rise. And so, again, just similar to what we touched on with the previous question, an early nap at different ages will reinforce an early rise. It's not going to be, though, that we move your baby to a 10 o'clock till 10:30 nap and that all of a sudden he's going to wake at 6:45 a.m. That is not the point of a schedule change. What we are doing is optimizing your schedule to support a later rise and any sleep work that you need to do. So whenever we work with the body clock, whenever we work with days, nights can take a hit, annoyingly. Vice versa, we can work on nights and days take a hit. We are making change and we have the goal of fixing an early rise, so we just kind of have to absorb that into the process. So we go 10 till 10:30, we're going to put you on the transitional schedule at 12 months. 10 till 10:30 nap 1, and then a 1 till 3 p.m. nap 2. I was just rereading, your baby has great napping skills. If it did turn to custard, you can fully assist that for now. And just feel like you've got a little bit of control. Equally, if your baby's happy to take the full nap, fantastic. You're then going to use a 4-hour wake window to know when bedtime is. So let's say then at 1 till 3, you've got a 7 p.m. into bed. If your baby doesn't already know how to self-settle, this is where we are going to encourage you to teach self-settling and using a technique, because one of the other things we need you to do is to implement the early rising protocol. I just imagine like a vision across our screens introducing the early rise protocol.
And clapping.
Yes. Drum roll, please. And if you're asking your baby to put themselves back to sleep at a really fragile time, I want you to know that they already know how to do it at a tired bedtime rather than asking them at a really tricky time to try something brand new. Let's set the stage for everybody's success. So if they can't already, we're going to teach them self-settling at bedtime, any overnight wakings that have cropped up, and then you're going to use the same technique in the early hours of the morning. If your baby can already self-settle, I would encourage you to use your sleep training technique that you previously have used. Very, very low stimulation. We're treating this as if it is 11 p.m. or 2 a.m., even if your baby doesn't go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really important.
And for more information, please see our episode on the early rising protocol and our 2-part episode on why is my baby waking at the crack of dawn? Because there are also other things. As always, this is never just a one, like, oh, just sleep train. Oh, just shift your timings. Environment, calories, temperature, tog rating of the sleeping bag. Has the aircon kicked in? Has the dog barked? All of these things. But the like sleep work part would be your schedule and then your early self-settling / early rise protocol.
Until 7.
Until 7. Yes. That jumped out at me. Yep.
Until 7. Because I think it's fine to have 6 a.m. as your uptime, but you have to overcorrect. And this is what we talk about in the episode in great detail, is like why we work to 7. It's never to have a little one that actually wakes up on the dot at 7, while some babies do. Totally fine. We love that. Excellent. But the goal really isn't to have a little one that wakes at 7. It's just we overcorrect to get to your desired wake up time, really, which is because to get 11 to 12 hours at least.
Yeah. Because if you get them up at 6, whilst that might be okay in terms of your day-to-day life schedule, it actually encourages, we're aiming for, it encourages a 5 to 5:30 wake up in anticipation of 6 a.m. up. Whereas we want to shift that to say wake somewhere between 6 and 6:30 in anticipation of a 7 a.m. up. And so we do have to overreach to provide maximum opportunity and remaining in the low stimulation, melatonin inducing dark room to say keep sleeping a little bit longer. We're treating this like bedtime. And just know that this can take 2 weeks.
Exactly. Persistence, repetition, consistency.
Yeah.
Persistence is key. That's probably the big one. As in, like, it's just like anything sleep work related, follow through, because your future self will love you for it.
Yes, your 7 a.m. self will love you for it.
Exactly.
But this is also the perfect sort of scenario and age for a consult, for reaching out to one of us to work together, for Camp Snooze, because there are multiple things that we can do to optimize your success and then give you the confidence to implement the early rise protocol when we know that is a very tricky time of the morning.
I think it's so nice for families to have a plan that's specific to them. I know a lot when we're talking, it sounds like everybody has the same sort of problems and we're, saying the same type of thing over and over again. But when you've got a plan that's specific to you and you're talking with your sleep consultant, on the daily about resolving things, it makes it feel very personal. Like we're working to your baby, their challenges, your environment, your work timings, their daycare schedule. Like it really is specific to you. And everyone has a different way of doing things and what they want out of a sleep solution and so forth. And I think if you're feeling like you need an extra sort of pair of hands or set of eyes on your sleep challenges, then we're always here to help you.
I remember maybe it was last week or the week before when we were doing Camp Snooze, and I think I said to families, I'm like, I hope you don't all feel a huge amount of pressure, each day, like, the sleep consultants are waiting. You got to turn up. You can't have made a mistake. And sort of joking about it. And one of them said, no, I actually really like it because that's what I think about in the night of like, oh no, I'm working on something. And I want to be able to tell them that I did it and know that they can help me even if it didn't quite go to plan, rather than feeling like they're going to get a slap on the wrist or the naughty corner. It actually provides supportive accountability.
Well, I just had a little on that, just to cut you off. I just got a text from a client who just said, this is 1:28. Hey, Beck, just wanted to share a little win. We're on our way home today. We hit roadworks, which delayed us getting home by a few minutes. Bubby was in his cot at 12:55 and fell asleep by 1 p.m. I can't believe it. 12:45 on the dot, he was rubbing his eyes, and I kept him awake until we got home, and he was out so fast. Love hearts.
Yay!
Like, just, it's so nice, and like being able to share those wins with somebody. Like that's like it feels it's so big for you. And all your wins are big wins as well, so amazing for this family. But also, as your sleep consultants, we are so invested in sleep and your happiness.
More than you know. More than you know. No, that's wonderful. And already I can tell, I'm like, that baby's body clock is primed for a 12:45 into cot.
Totally.
Like that's the power of sleep work. Yes. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. And genuinely, we do love it.
We do love it.
Like we're celebrating that. We're not just saying it. All right. I think that's probably all we've got time for today. We're going to love you and leave you, but we will be back because I've still got a full DM of your wonderful questions. So we will see you on the next episode of Sleep Detectives. In the meantime, you know where to find us. We are so eager and happy to help you at any time. And good luck with the early rise protocol.
Good luck, everybody. Persistence.
Bye.
Bye.